Hi guys, I hope you're having a wonderful day today. In this pick a card reading, we're going to be looking into the question of then versus now. How have the person on your mind's thoughts and feelings towards you changed? There are three groups to choose from. Group 1 is the yellow and blue striped glass heart. Group 2 is the red and white carnelian heart. And group 3 is the purple and white chevron amethyst heart. Up next is a close-up photo of the hearts. There are timestamps in the description box of the video, and I will see you in just a minute for the reading. Hi, group 1. You chose the yellow and blue striped glass heart. So let's start with the energies of then. This could be earlier in your connection, or maybe this is someone you're in a no contact situation with. And so previously, before you went into no contact, what were their thoughts and feelings about you in the past? Okay, we have see the truth, have courage, and love that you are different. So there's a sense with these energies, I'm hearing you can see right through me. With this owl, and the see the truth card, owls may be significant for this connection, or it's a sense of the masks that this person was wearing, the typical kind of like approaches to connections, cheesy pickup lines that they might have used. There's a sense of you didn't take the bait. You weren't easily kind of swayed. You weren't easily sort of coaxed into opening up or giving your trust over to this person. It's something which held them to like a higher standard that it feels like was very different. It was very unusual. You definitely challenged this person's ego. And this may have been something, if you are in a no contact situation, there might have been something where they got very bristled by something that you said, or like the way that you carry yourself. Not that it was like an insult, but something where it's almost like, okay, the bare minimum isn't going to suffice in this connection with this person. This is somebody who has big dreams, they got big goals, they know where they're going in life, or they've been through the ringer with like other people and other connections, that they're not putting up with nonsense. And so it feels like that was something that they felt that you were very much in the driver's seat or in the power position within this connection, something that may have made like a necessary period of time of almost having to like step back and lick their wounds, and kind of take some time in almost like silence and quiet and introspection, because there's a sense that in the midst of all of that, this is someone that was very like conflicted with that. And if you're in like a no contact situation, they may still be conflicted with that energy inside of themselves. But there's a sense here of like, you trigger me and yet I can't look away. You trigger me and yet I keep being drawn back to you. You trigger me and yet I aggressively want to pursue you. And so in the past, this is something that it feels like this person almost felt like, I need to take a step back. It might not have even been something they thought about, but they're, we'll get into that in a few minutes, kind of like how those feelings and thoughts have changed. But it's something where it's almost like their higher self or their higher knowing was like, before you proceed down this path and kind of like embarrass yourself, before you have your ego shattered by this person, before you think you're just going to kind of get away with or continue to get away with in a long-term sense, like tricky sort of energy, or something where they were, holding a lot back, or trying to kind of like manipulate the outcome in this situation by almost setting up like a series of kind of tests and challenges, in order to try and like control or have like a dominating energy or the upper hand within the situation with you. Because again, it's almost like you're Your confidence, your independence was very sexy. It was very attractive, but it triggered some kind of woundedness within them of kind of like, well, what's my role in this situation? You're someone that can take care of themselves. You're someone that seems to have it all together. So what can I really do for you? It's like the energy of somebody who doesn't need another person. They want another person. And this individual may be used to being like needed by other people. Other people stroke their ego, and there's a sense that, yeah, you flattered them, you hit all the right buttons as far as those pleasure centers in the ego are concerned, but then there was also a sense of kind of like that wouldn't have been sustainable in a long-term sense, that you were someone with high standards that required more substance, an ability to kind of grow and evolve rather than settle and stagnate. That was something that kind of almost, there's a sense that they almost felt like they needed to use strategy in this situation with you. Not that you were necessarily, very confrontational to them, but it's something about just the way you carry yourself, or the energy or the nature of your dynamic with one another, where there was almost like, I can't just continue forth in the way I thought I would in this situation, because you see right through me. You're kind of like, oh, and this is interesting. You're like, this is coming through as like you were passing a lot of their tests before they even gave the test. And that might have been something where it's almost like they felt you were 10 steps ahead of them. You were approaching in a very kind of like, almost like a generous energy in terms of giving this person the benefit of the doubt. But there's something that really tripped their ego up as far as like, I'm moving with strategy, you're moving in an authentic way, and you're beating me at my own game. Like a game of love, a game of romance. This may be somebody that looks at kind of love and romance like you tapped on some kind of wound within them of sort of like it's a game between two people. Having to always kind of, get one up on the other person. So they may have come out of like a very toxic connection prior to meeting you, and that was kind of the baggage that they brought in, that you definitely brought to the surface or triggered very immediately. If this is someone you're still in contact with, then they're in the midst of this triggered mode. They're trying to just like stand their ground with you, but there is this kind of urge to run. Not because it's like, you're pushing them away or you're too much, but there's a sense of like they're running away from this kind of feeling within of like, if I'm going to keep the pace with you, if I'm going to continue to be relevant for you, if this is going to work, then I'm going to have to get out of my own way. I'm going to have to do something different than just kind of manipulating or, keeping that kind of pessimistic view of romance, because you were showing them something very different. And so you definitely triggered this person initially. And if you're in no contact, it feels like that was a big reason for this person kind of dropping off the radar, pushing you away, running away. Is this triggering of the ego. You outwitted them in some sort of way. But it's not even entirely a negative, which it feels like that may be something that was kind of like, whoa, I got to take a step back. Because there are times in the day where that makes me furious, and there are times in the day when it feels like that's exactly what I need. And so it feels like there's like a conflict within them. You stirred some sort of conflict within them with their worldview, with their perception of themselves, in like love as a power struggle, or romance, or dating, getting to know people as kind of, again, trying to like play games or outmaneuver one another. And yet you're somebody that you penetrated far beyond that mask, far beyond that strategy, far beyond that kind of calculating energy. This may be somebody as well that found themselves kind of revealing certain things to you sooner than they wanted to. And that might have really kind of alarmed them in some sort of way. Like, why am I opening up to this person so quickly? Why am I feeling this is such a trustworthy situation? So you definitely gave this person food for thought. But it feels like it's something that you also, I'm drawn to the fact that this like gold lion right here, this is kind of like, it's like a process of alchemy that you sort of activated within this person, that it's like they'd be very triggered, but then there'd be something where through kind of like reflecting on those wounds, or even periods of time where there was like silence, like the communication was very choppy. It's not just like, okay, let me come back towards you again, but it's almost like you shined a light on these wounds inside of them, and they were able to like alchemize that into gold. They were able to kind of like come to some kind of understanding or even an awareness that they had a wound. This is someone that originally felt very vulnerable in your presence. Again, the idea of like, you see right through me. You see the truth. You see what others couldn't have seen about me, or that I went to extreme lengths to kind of like hide or cover up. This is something where this person almost felt like you're speaking to kind of the light within them, irrespective of kind of the darkness that they might have covered that with, or they might have felt was kind of a pathway to get to that. Or something where you were like speaking life into them, but then it's something that almost kind of made them feel like, if only you knew kind of the way that I was really motivated, if only you knew the way I really felt about partnerships in general, not just with you, but like in general. If only you really knew kind of the baggage I was still carrying around from past disappointments, then you might not be speaking so highly to me. You might not be so trusting. You might not be so open. So there's a sense that you almost kind of brought up some shame within this person, like a cowardly lion kind of energy. Like an awareness that they either were able to get your attention or magnetize you in, or, you know, maybe you're the one that originally kind of approached this person. You kind of started a connection, but then there was almost a sense of like, if you knew the real me, I don't think that you would give me the time of day. So you brought up like an unworthiness wound within this person that has either they're at the point of needing to take some space if you're still in contact with them, or that was like a big reason behind choosing to sort of step away from this connection for a period of time. So let's take a look and see how those thoughts and feelings have evolved within this person. Okay, we've got inner peace, positive intention, and heaven's door. Yeah, so there's a sense that this person is in the midst of and has already gone through something where this may be somebody that has a hard time kind of taking accountability for their own sort of woundedness, or they might have come out of a cycle, like a bad breakup, where it was just easier to point the finger at the other person, or the other person might have really done a number on them where that could have been justified. They could be holding a lot of resentments. But this is somebody that is kind of seeing like, as much as you push those buttons, you trigger those kind of feelings within, or a strategy that was kind of implemented to sort of like protect their heart, to kind of keep people at a distance while still trying to fulfill kind of their romantic needs or their sexual needs, or, you know, kind of like urges for companionship, or, you know, just kind of get themselves back out there in some sort of way that might have worked as far as like more kind of situationships or surface level connections. They see you as somebody that is kind of like, here's an opportunity to really heal some of those wounds. Here's an opportunity to kind of like see what are the ways in which past circumstances kind of left me worse for wear, and time has passed and I'm still in that energy of worse for wear. It's almost like a competitive aspect that has been activated. So it's, in a way, it's kind of a continuation of this energy of feeling very triggered, that this person's kind of urge to use strategy as far as romance is concerned to kind of keep emotions at a distance that was triggered in the past or earlier on in the situation. There's almost a sense of like, I can rise to the challenge. I'll meet you at heaven's door. I see now where it's almost like flaws in my system have been pointed out without you meaning to, without you picking this person apart or judging them. It's almost just like seeing their own reflection mirrored within you, instead of like they have seen almost, or you've shown them, or you've spoken life into like this higher potential, but they can't help but notice those flaws. They can't help but notice almost like how much they have changed from the person they were before, whatever that kind of heartbreak or disappointment or series of disappointments were in their past that kind of caused them to take on a jaded or a pessimistic approach to love and connection. It's almost like they now are getting these kind of reminders of who they were before all of that happened. And there's an energy of starting to kind of merge those two versions of self. Starting to say, okay, I can't undo the past and the things that have created, like, maybe commitment issues or fears of letting anyone in too close or letting anyone see the real them. But here you are somebody who has kind of like come in. They see you as someone very positively intentioned. They've definitely evolved beyond a feeling of kind of like you're trying to get one up on them, or, that you have kind of like you're using your own series of strategies and you've kind of outmaneuvered them. Like they're moved beyond that in some sort of way, where they see you as almost kind of like a guiding light to help them kind of recapture some of that more like innocent or trusting energy that existed within them, that was just kind of their default. It was that blank canvas before somebody, some previous connection, some kind of heartbreak changed their outlook on love and their ability to see themselves as lovable, both to give and receive love. There's an energy of you're helping to bring balance to this person. You've taught them the meaning of like reciprocity, almost like you've given them a taste of their own medicine, because you might have matched this person's energy. If they started to get weird and get cold, then you almost like you pulled back. You weren't going to play those games of like chasing this person or feeding into ego. And it's been some kind of like a reality check, but again, to almost like a higher self. They may be getting a lot of like downloads about this, or a lot of like aha moments, epiphanies, kind of going through the motions of their day-to-day reality, just at work, at the gym, kind of just having quiet time, like things where they're not like intensely in their thoughts. They're kind of just, almost spaced out kind of, or just like decompressed, just they've unplugged from stress or whatever they're trying to, or they're going through the motions of their day, and all of a sudden there's something that's almost kind of like they're reflecting on something you said or an experience with you, and it's like, okay, I see that now from a different angle, where there are these like spontaneous moments of almost kind of like light, like illumination coming through what had originally been like a darkness or a trigger. And so this person is like starting to warm up to the idea of this is a very challenging connection. It challenges their ego. And you're not leading with the energy, it feels, again, of like you're trying to be aggressive, you're trying to provoke this person, but there's definitely a period of time in the past where they felt very provoked by you. Very like your vibe, your high vibe, or even kind of your willingness to sort of see this person at face value. Maybe even just as you're getting to know them, you don't know much about them, but the way you were kind of interacting with them, it was very pure. They're seeing it as like, this is good intentioned. This is something that is kind of like leading me in the direction of, I start to sort of feel better. Like they're starting to feel better. There's some kind of inner peace that's kind of taken over as you've pushed these buttons without meaning to, and they've been forced to kind of revisit those painful feelings, that kind of hurt, those wounds that sort of led them to kind of shut down or become very jaded as far as love goes, or apply this whole like strategy mindset to matters of the heart. That they're either kind of like coming to a place of not sort of like bitterness, and that's why that's happening, but almost kind of like acceptance. Like, yeah, I see that was some kind of coping mechanism. I feel that was just, that's what I had to do to survive, or to kind of move through that painful experience or that disappointment or that heartbreak. This is someone who doesn't really know how to talk about their feelings. They may bottle up a lot. There's a lot of pressure that operates inside of them at all times, and you've helped to kind of create a release valve for that internally. In terms of like, now they're starting to see, okay, I'm not just somebody that is like, down on love, or, is kind of like not really trusting of the idea of that. Like, yeah, I can still hold space of that version of me. Like, that's what I became to survive, or that's what I became in the aftermath of my experiences. But this is somebody that's starting to look on the brighter side of things. They're starting to look at kind of like, well, maybe not every person's going to be like that. Maybe not every relationship's going to end the same way. Maybe not everybody's out to kind of like play games with my heart, to try to fool me in a relationship. Like, you've shown this person very genuine energy. where if they've, had any kind of pullbacks, you're not manipulating them, you're not bringing up a very like toxic sort of energy. So you're helping to really kind of, again, like alchemize some of these wounds within. It's like the wound is where the light enters, is what's coming through with these two doors right here. They see you not as a window of opportunity, but a door towards healing. And again, there's this challenge of like coming out of this cowardly lion energy into kind of like, let me get into that strength and courage energy. Let me look those wounds in the face. And instead of just sitting there glaring at them and ruminating and kind of living my life as in that wounded capacity, punishing other people for the ways in which someone or a series of someone's previously broke my heart. Let me walk through that fire and come out the other side as somebody who is kind of brave enough to love loudly. It's like the wounded warrior moving into that energy of kind of like, yeah, I've got my battle scars, but the bravest thing I'm doing is learning to love again, or opening my heart. You've like opened this person's heart in a way. And a lot of this feels to be like, it's just an energetic exchange. It could be things that you say that your words are very healing, or your presence is very healing to this person, and distance apart, or anything they've needed to process in terms of those lower vibrational feelings. As they've come through the other side of that, there's almost a sense of like, wow, you're somebody or who's aligned with me kind of on this like timeline of feeling better. You're somebody that said the right thing, and you closed off that part of me that was just like very, very negative, very pessimistic, very mistrusting. This is somebody who almost might have thought good things don't last. And now they're starting to say, but what if this is different? So this is somebody who may also see you as like heaven sent. Somebody that is kind of like an opportunity for a second chance. A second chance to kind of like give the idea of love a chance to disprove all of the times when love in the past was something that resulted in them becoming kind of like angry and sort of shut down. Here's an opportunity to rewrite that narrative. So it feels like there's a lot of gratitude that they have for you. And this is now somebody that's very challenged, kind of like, okay, I see where this is going. Like, I can't just use sort of the cliches. I can't just approach with this kind of woundedness. I need to take off that mask. I need to get very real with myself. If I'm going to be able to kind of sustain my place in your life, or I hope to re-enter your life, I'm going to have to level up in some capacity. And so this is almost somebody that is like, okay, challenge accepted. And that challenge is in the form of just like sitting with that, not numbing out those wounds, not kind of just like love sucks and that's the end of it, and kind of like operating in the world accordingly. But it's sort of like, okay, that's a wall that I built around myself. What else is there? So they see you as somebody that's aligned with kind of like a better future for them. They see you as someone very, very different from people they've dealt with in the past. That you give this person a lot of hope. That maybe they're not just someone who's kind of like forever unlucky in love, or cursed in love, or, always destined to be like disappointed in love. There's almost a sense of like, because this might have been somebody who, they did their fair share of breaking hearts. This may be something where this is somebody that's kind of like, yeah, I've been done dirty emotionally, and I've done people really dirty emotionally. And there's a sense of like, you bring forth a redeemable energy. Maybe they're not really the bad guy. Maybe there's still something lovable about them. If you can speak to the light in them, maybe that's something that can become part of like more of their lived reality. So let's get a few message cards from their higher self and see what they want you to know. Okay. Okay, and we have this whole twin flame stuff sometimes scares me. Yeah, so this could definitely be a twin flame connection in terms of like triggering, periods of separation, personal growth and evolution. All of those kind of like key phrases seem to fit this energy. All of these hallmarks are here where you like come into one another's lives in order to again sort of shine a light on the boundaries of woundedness and how to kind of take personal responsibility to accept and love those parts of ourselves and to choose to invest belief that we can grow beyond them. This is somebody that they don't want to remain at a distance from you if it's a no contact, or if it's something where they're very triggered and they maybe like the instinct is to run and they're trying to just like hold themselves in place and sort of like, okay, why am, things are great, why am I feeling all this kind of like fear, all this frustration, all of this anger in conjunction to this? Like, you're just so nice to me, you're just so good to me, you're just so sweet to me. Why is that agitating? There's a sense of almost like they're activating to kind of sit with that and sort of peel back those layers, that maybe it's not you, it's them. But what's going to be accomplished if they kind of run off in another direction? Maybe a period of separation is necessary between the two of you, but it's definitely something where you've activated this person, where they're looking at the idea of love and partnership in a different way as compared to what they've known before. And again, almost the sense of like, this isn't toxic energy, but it's almost like I'm so triggered by you that I want to just kind of shut this connection down, and yet I'm also powerfully drawn to you because it feels like this is exactly the kind of trigger I need to get out of my own way. We also have, I know more than you think. So it feels like this person thinks a lot about conversations that you have. They think a lot about the way that you say things that you've told them about, dreams and goals for the future. And there's a sense of almost like they read between the lines of what you have to say, where they don't feel judged by you, because they almost feel like whatever your kind of like worldview is, whatever the energy you hold within, whatever your kind of aspirations are for the future, you've like fought hard to become this version of yourself. So this is somebody that's very like inspired by you. That also may be very challenging and triggering, to them in terms of the power dynamic in the situation. People that they might have previously sort of looked at as like inspirational or mentors or guides, especially because there's like romantic feelings here. It's a romance reading. There's a sense of like, how do those two things blend? My mentors and my guides and my inspirations and my teachers are not people that I've got crushes on. They're not people that I'm feeling, all kind of emotional things for. They're not people that I'm like, intimate with in physical connections, sexual connections, or I want it to go there. So there may be a little bit of that as well. You're kind of helping them to sort of like, yeah, there can be space for that as well. We can have romance and we can also inspire one another as people. We also have, I'm not used to a connection like this, so I run. Yeah, so if you are in no contact with this situation, this is something where it's like they don't want that to last permanently. This is something where it's kind of like, I need to just sort of like sit and think about this. This is somebody that is very like emotionally kind of frazzled at this particular point in time. This may be kind of like part of their coping mechanism too, when they feel emotionally vulnerable, is just to kind of shut down. But this is somebody that is kind of like, they understand they're not going to get away with playing games with you. So back to that energy of strategy, it's kind of like, okay, I need to implement a new strategy, and that strategy is coming real, even if coming like correct in the form of just being real, even if that's messy, even if that's something where, I'm going to be humbled at times, or I'm going to be, kind of made aware of the fact that I have a hard time accepting like real positive reinforcement or constructive criticism, or like whatever that kind of looks like. There's a sense of they don't want to miss out on this opportunity with you, but they need time to kind of like still themselves and ready themselves for what they see can be a very rewarding connection with you. But that reward only comes on the other side of the challenge to kind of grow beyond their comfort zone, or how they're used to sort of showing up in love. So let's get some initials. This could be a first, middle, or last name, or could spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. We've got N, C, V L D W J F E N A B L and M. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. Please give the video a like or a comment to show your support. Subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more content here. Hit the bell notification or the bell button to get notifications when I do post new videos. And if you would like to book a personal reading with me, I offer those through my Etsy shop, and there's a link for that below in the description box. I hope to see you again in another video. Please take care and be well. Hi, group 2. You chose the red and white carnelian heart. So let's start with the energies of then. That can apply to like earlier on in your connection if it's somebody that you're still connected to, you're still dealing with, or if this is like a no contact situation, this can relate to the time period before you went into no contact, or even earlier on within that aspect of the dynamic. What were their thoughts and feelings then? Okay, we've got create, embodiment, and discernment. Okay, so this is somebody who felt a lot of compatibility with you right from the start. The more that they got to know you, there's a sense of like, you fit so well, not with what they had thought was their type or what they were originally sort of feeling like this is the kind of person that I want in my life or that I'm looking for, but you checked off a lot of boxes of like, this is actually what I need. These are things like you embodied qualities. It's kind of like, I didn't even think to ask for that. I didn't even think to kind of like look for something like that. So something about you is like a very unique individual that has helped them kind of expand the criteria, it feels like, of what they were hoping to kind of magnetize in as a partner. Something where they might have at first kind of they almost felt like it was a long shot for you to give them the time of day. They might have felt like you were kind of out of their league in some sort of way, or that it was kind of impulsive or even reckless for them to think you'd be somebody that want to, spend time with them long term. You'd be somebody that would, like the kind of like quote unquote real them, or, maybe even kind of like an opposites attract sort of situation with this black and white swan here of kind of like, okay, maybe this will just be sort of fun on a temporary basis, but I don't see this going anywhere in like a really long-term sense. That was kind of their early days sort of feeling, or the initial kind of first impression, where it's almost like you've made a believer out of this person that's sort of like, oh, I guess that was something that really kind of like proved me wrong. That really sort of, I had to eat humble pie there in a sense, in terms of like, I didn't have high expectations, not in terms of that they thought there was something wrong with you, but that surely at some point in time you would kind of like come to your senses, and they almost like thought you'd be someone to ghost them. You're going to take off. You're going to fly the coop. You're just going to like drop them like a bad habit at some point in time. And yet you stuck around. It feels like even the parts of your interactions with one another, or aspects in kind of like who you are as people, or the life that you want to build, that were kind of like a mismatch. That it's like these things fit together somehow. Or you introduce this person to the ability of like to compromise, or to see things from a different person's perspective. This might have been somebody who was used to really kind of like matchy energy. Only like attracts like. People that were, from the same background, from the same demographic, almost something where it's like they might have kind of sort of the idea of like dating the same person, the same type of archetype, the same type of personality, but then it's different people. Like all the relationships went the same way. Something that almost like clockwork, they could determine like, okay, this is the point where we've peaked. Now here comes the plateau. Now we're descending into the valley. Now they're walking away. Or, everything's great. Now I'm starting to feel very claustrophobic in the connection. Now I'm self-sabotaging. Now I'm the one that's kind of doing something that brings it all crashing down. And so it's kind of like this is somebody that was almost feeling very helpless within a cycle that they were in that had repeated itself multiple times with different partners. And there's a sense that you sort of put a wrench in that. Not even a wrench in their plans, but you kind of busted them out of that cycle in some sort of way. You turned their head to kind of look in a different direction. You've caused them to kind of question what they might have thought was just the inevitability of their approach to romance. This could have been somebody that was looking for like no strings attached situations. And so again, there wasn't like a high hope or an expectation that this would be long lasting at first. And it's something to where this was almost like this kind of energy of even that idea of like then versus now, very quickly in that energy of then, like earlier on in your connection, it's almost like every time they were talking to you, there was something that was like, wow, I didn't see that coming. Wow, okay, that actually, and it's an energy of almost silence. Like you silenced something within this person where they started becoming more kind of like aware of this is something very unique. This is something very different. Something where it's almost like the first impression that you gave, like appearances are deceiving, that there was so much more to you that meets the eye, that you made this person very curious. Like, I want to know what else there is to you. What kind of deeper layers exist to you? Where it's almost like this person found themselves kind of like chasing attention very early on. There might have been a fear on their part of like, I don't want to come on too strong. I don't want to like love bomb this person. I don't want to come across as I'm trying to be manipulated, but like you truly fascinated this person because of who you are as a person, but also in terms of just like a self-reflective energy. It's like, wow, some of the things that you might have said or you might have expressed or that they kind of like learned about you, these are things that for other people that would have not, it might have been a turn off, or it might have been things where it's like, yeah, that's not going to work. That's something that's like diametrically opposed. I don't see how these two worlds are going to like fit in with one another. And yet with you, there's almost like, yeah, maybe that might be difficult or weird, or it's something that I've not experienced before, but there was a curiosity like, but what if it could work? I wonder what that would be like. Something where there might have even been disowned parts of themselves they shoved within their shadow that almost felt like a resonance with you. I'm safe to be myself in your presence. There's an invitation without it being openly spoken about, like all of you is welcome at this table. All of you is welcome to kind of co-create in this experience of we're getting to know one another. If it was something that just started off as like a hookup, like a sexual connection, like a situationship, there was almost like an invitation of kind of like, yeah, I'll respect our arrangement with one another, or the way things are playing out, or how everything has begun. But there's also the sense here of kind of like, but the door is open to explore something more. The door is open to create something more deep and more meaningful. This is somebody that in the past, they didn't feel pressured to act. Not like you would just sort of put up with whatever, but there's almost a sense that you were very easygoing. You were very kind of like, you didn't seek that outside kind of validation from them. Your self-worth and your self-esteem wasn't dependent on the attention that they were giving you. It was kind of like you could take it or leave it. And that is something that they may have never encountered somebody like you. There's a sense that they had some kind of feeling of like, okay, maybe you're just sort of telling me what I want to hear. Maybe, so a little bit of maybe thinking you were too good to be true in a certain aspect, and kind of like, I need to kind of just sit here and wait and see, when's that mask going to fall off? When's the real you going to kind of rear its ugly head? And then begins the cycle of, we start to create distance and it falls apart, and, you know, et cetera, kind of like round and round as they've had with other people. But there's a sense of like, you are who you say you are, and that may have been very surprising, like very refreshing, very reassuring, but very surprising to this person. Not because you gave off an air of being like artificial, but because there's almost like they were used to dealing with fake people, plastic people, people that were just kind of like people pleasers, all for appearance's sake. And yet with you, there's a sense of almost like you're very sort of self-assured that you brought something to the table. It was like, this is who I am, take it or leave it. I'm not going to dilute myself down to make other people comfortable. And this is something that this person is like a breath of fresh air. It's something they've never experienced before. And it attracts them to you or attracted them to you, because we're still in that energy of then, in ways that were kind of like very interesting for them. It's almost like they were loyal to the potential of what this situation could become, because it's like, I've not met someone like you. I've not pursued somebody like you before. And not even just like, okay, let me kind of, you know, spice things up. Let me kind of add in some variety, because it's almost like as they got to know you as a person, or started spending more time with you, or acted on that kind of urge, maybe something that was even like, I don't know why I'm attracted to you. The way you present is different from the way that people I'm normally in relationships with, that they present, but there's just something about you where I'm really drawn in. And the more that they've kind of like given over to that, explored that, experienced that, there's a sense like it doesn't make sense, but it makes sense on some level. And there was like a protectiveness over that. I got to see what happens. I got to see where this goes. I got to see where this leads. I got to see where this leads in me. Something where they may have noticed that like they changed in your presence, not changed for the worse, but something that almost kind of like relaxed. Something that was almost kind of like, good, oh good, I don't have to perform. Not in front of you, or not in the same way around you that I do with other people. And that was something very noteworthy for this person earlier on, or kind of, you know, in sort of past chapters between the two of you. So let's take a look and see how those feelings towards you have evolved and changed in the energy of now. Okay, we have wash away your burdens, make the sacrifice, and honor Gaia. Yeah, so there's that energy of being very like protective over the potential of this connection, but there's a recognition as well, like, I don't feel I'm ready for you. There's a sense within that this is somebody who almost kind of feels like, I got to fight my own demons in some sort of way, or I've got to close out cycles in my life. This may be somebody who there's this urge or this inclination of kind of like, I want to give more exclusive focus and attention to what we can develop with one another, or maybe what needs to be repaired. If that idea of like, I'm not good enough for you yet, cause this person to kind of like retreat or retract their energy, or you know, kind of interrupt that vibration of harmony, maybe even unconsciously between the two of you, that there's still a sense of kind of like, to come back towards you, to continue to kind of like get to know you and have experiences with you. I don't want outside energy like interfering with that. And outside energy being in the form of like past exes that they were dealing with, other people that they might have been in like talking stages with, or even situationships with. kind of at this, like, concurrent with this, or, you know, even in like a time period where you might have had some kind of separation. It's sort of like, I need to create distance between myself and those things, create that closure, or, you know, kind of just like discontinue those sort of active participations with other people, because I want to see where this goes. There's a sense that they can't escape that feeling of like a deep sense of being very comfortable. You bring this person a lot of inner peace. This is somebody that feels that you're a very kind of like, you're a very adaptable person, and yet they themselves find like an inclination, like, I want to be like you. I want to adapt as you do, as you have. I want to, instead of like, let me bring you into my world and reality, it's like, I want to come into your world and your reality. I want to come out of my comfort zone. You bring forth an adventurous part within this person. They're very fascinated about aspects about you that are just kind of like, you know, maybe it's like a mindset or a way you carry yourself, certain beliefs, certain practices, certain ways in which you live your life that is different than anyone they've ever known. They've never met someone like you, and they see this as kind of like a rare opportunity, something special that, like, if they play their cards right, this could be the experience of a lifetime. There's almost something where they're starting to say, like, maybe you're that missing link. Maybe you're that kind of person, like either you specifically, or, you know, the type of person that you are. Maybe this is what I've been needing the whole time. Maybe this is something that, it's that opposites attract that is creating such a compelling energy between the two of us. And I was only dating, like, you know, myself and another person before, that same matchy you know, birds of a feather kind of energy. And that's where things fell apart. That's where it was all kind of destined to failure. But there's enough difference amidst kind of your commonalities with one another, like as people, that tops off this kind of like, they're very like attracted to you. And again, it's like this protective sort of energy. Like they want to lay claim to you in some sort of way. They want to be very possessive over you. They want to like exert almost like dominance or like ownership. But then there's also a sense of like, that would just be like, you'd become like a crushed flower. They understand that like a heavy-handed approach isn't appropriate within this situation. That may be something that's different from previous partners as well, where they needed to be kind of the aggressor. They needed to, or even the one that sort of shut down their emotions, while the other person was like, you know, kind of bleeding out all those emotions everywhere. But it's kind of like mirroring, almost like this person's they have a lot of deep feelings, and with you there's a space of kind of like, that can come to the table, that can be kind of presented. You're somebody that is evolved or matured, like emotionally speaking, to where there's now space or room for this person to even kind of just like take a breather and just sit within their feelings. They appreciate the fact that you're not constantly saying to them, what are you feeling? What are you feeling? Like, even though you're here watching a tarot reading to kind of get some insight about this, it feels like they love the fact that you respect kind of their need for silence at times, or the times where they don't know what they're feeling. That you're able to kind of model what it is to be sort of emotionally evolved, that's helping them to kind of almost adjust themselves to you. Like they're wanting to go with the flow of you, of like the tone that you set emotionally speaking. There's a sense that they see you as like their safe place, their safe harbor, their sanctuary. If they are at a distance from you, there's like, I want to come home, and I'm protecting the potential to do that, or the process of that happening, by making sure that, you know, I'm kind of like, I don't have these other loose ends with these other people. Like they see now that it's kind of like they're at a crossroads almost. There is what they're used to with a certain type of partner, a certain archetype, you know, that was showing up within partnerships, or just kind of a familiar story playing out over and over again with different individuals. And then there's what you offer them, which is kind of like a wild card, but yet it feels like it's it's like the path less traveled, the road less traveled. Yet there's a part of them that kind of, some sort of instinct within that says, I think that might be exactly what I need. I think that might be exactly what I'm kind of looking for in order to like get my act together, to kind of like finally sort of align with kind of a life I don't have to escape from, to actually have like long-term stability. Because you make this person feel very stable within themselves. And so there's a sense of they don't want that kind of like outside energy to sort of interfere with this. They may be very protective over this. This is something where they almost like want to keep you to themselves, but they want to love you out loud. They don't want to make you feel like an option or make you feel secondary. So there may be kind of a process of sort of like having to, again, tie up loose ends with other people, figure out something as far as like if they have kids with someone else, there may be kind of a process of sort of trying to come to a better working relationship with their children's parent. Something where it's like they don't even want to bring that drama in if possible. Something where it's kind of like you make a lot of pieces fit together within this individual that is kind of reflecting in the way in which they, want to have connection with others as well. This is somebody that wants to kind of redesign their world, their internal world, or the life they're living in order to make it a more comfortable or suitable place for this connection to flourish, this connection to thrive, this connection to blossom. And that's all motivated by how you carry yourself, how you conduct your affairs, how you conduct your business, how you conduct yourself, how you're moving through the world. They're looking towards you, and it's kind of like, yeah, you're somebody that they see has a lot of inner peace, but that it's something that you must have worked very hard for that. Like they trust you. They trust you with their heart. They trust you with their emotional well-being. And so there's almost, again, the sense of kind of like, what can I do in order to make sure that I'm honoring the gift of that? What can I do to make sure I'm showing up as a more trustworthy version of myself for whatever may be necessary to like reconcile with one another? Or if it's somebody you're still, dealing with, you're still in contact with, it's like an active connection. It's kind of like, what can I do to make sure that I'm sort of preserving the potential of longevity between the two of us? Because they see you as someone who's really good for them. You're very unexpected, but you're exactly what they need. So let's get some message cards from their higher self and see what they want you to know. Okay, and we have, I've thought about you spending time with my family and me. Yeah, so there's definitely that energy of kind of like they're trying to sort of improve some things on the home front. Maybe this has to do, with like kids and, previous partners, or, the other parent of their children. This could have to do with like, their relationship with parents, with siblings, kind of the home life, the extended family. For some people, this would involve kind of like setting healthy boundaries and creating distance between themselves and certain like enmeshments that they have with previous partners, other family members, things like that, because there's a sense of like, as we get to know one another more, as we become more relevant in one another's lives, I want to make sure that I'm not just kind of like bringing you into a circumstance of chaos, and that I'm not showing up in these circumstances as like a previously chaotic version of myself. They may notice that kind of like after they spend time with you, or they're kind of like going through certain changes that have happened through the course of this connection, that it's kind of like their interpersonal relationships are improving. This is somebody that feels like you've taught them how to respond more and react less. And so they see you as like a good influence, somebody that they would trust, like being around their kids if they have kids, or something where it's kind of like, I want my family to meet you. I want the people that I care about to sort of see, because there may have been people as well that had kind of like disapproved of previous partners, especially if there was just like a familiar pattern that this person was kind of stuck in, maybe choosing people that kind of brought the worst out in them, and vice versa. There's a sense of almost feeling that people in their lives would be very proud that they found somebody like you, or that they found you. They found somebody that kind of like brings out the best in them. It's something where they're very excited, that idea of kind of like showing you off, showing this connection off. We also have, I am always reminded of you. So this is something, again, this is almost the energy of like, I'm trying to think of different ways to sort of like celebrate you quietly, move towards that process of celebrating you loudly. If there has been kind of a quiet period between the two of you, it's definitely not out of sight, out of mind. They're thinking about you a lot right now. Yeah, and we also have, I don't want you to be with anyone else. So there's that energy of feeling very protective, very possessive over this. It feels like that urge has only grown with time, but they're checking themselves. They don't want that to turn into like jealousy. Jealousy might have been an issue in previous connections, like on both sides, kind of bringing out the worst in one another. Not healthy like jealousy and, you know, sort of like, hey, this is my person and I'm their person, but something that might have almost spiraled into a very kind of unhealthy territory. And so this is somebody that wants to kind of check that part of themselves, because they understand that that is just a very destructive energy if it's not kind of kept under control. And so there's a sense of almost trying to like move carefully through this next phase with you, whether that's reconnection or, you know, taking things to the next level between the two of you. But there's a sense of almost like, I don't want this opportunity to slip by. I don't want this to be a circumstance that was kind of just, it had so much potential and then it sort of fizzled out. So it feels like this is somebody that is inclined to kind of put more effort in. They want to be more kind of like of a high effort person with you going forward. So let's get some initials. This could be a first, middle, or last name, or it could spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. We've got S, V, Z, I, E, U, O, D, F, Y, D, N, A, and A. So those are your messages. I hope they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. Please give the video a like or comment to show your support. Subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more content from me. And don't forget to hit that bell button so you can get notifications when I do post new videos. If you would like a personal reading, I offer those through my Etsy shop, and there's a link for that down below in the description box. I hope to see you again in another video. Please take care and be well. Hi, Group 3. You chose the purple and white Chevron Amethyst heart. So let's start with the energies of then. That can be earlier on in your connection if this is somebody that you're still connected to, or if this is somebody you're in a no contact situation with. This can be, you know, experiences of how they thought and felt about you, sort of like before the no contact or even earlier on within that chapter of your dynamic. Okay, so we've got awareness, opportunity, and application. So there's a sense that when this person like first met you, or, you know, your connection first developed with one another, they sense that you were a very guarded person. You were very hard to read, almost like a self-protective energy, but also something where they were kind of aware of, you know, almost like spiritually being protected in some sort of way. You had a lot of people praying for you, you know, a lot of support within kind of the higher realms, within kind of, you know, your ancestors, your lineage, something where they also saw you as somebody that maybe, and if this is something, they might have even just made an assumption, like somebody like you must have like droves of admirers or a lot of people praying for them, a lot of people that like love them and support them, which may have been something of just kind of an assumption, especially if it's something where, you know, you've had to figure out a lot of hard things on your own. You haven't had a lot of support. It's almost like this person misjudged you at first as kind of like you were mysterious, you were secretive, you were hiding things. They almost saw you as somebody who might have been operating in like a wounded energy, like a self-protective energy. But this is something that almost kind of brought out this part within them of like, I gotta figure that out. I gotta uncover the mystery. I gotta crack the code. There might have been a bit of kind of like you inspired this person to start to kind of like try to get information about you, try to like ask around about you, try to kind of like keep their ears, their eyes and ears open for anything that would come through the pipeline about you. For some, they may have done like research into your past to try to like figure things out because you were very hard to read. It was very hard to like get an understanding or a read on you in some sort of way. Or this might have even been something where they just kind of like jumped to conclusions, like they didn't know what happened, but it must have been bad in order for you to be like presenting in this sort of energy of you don't let your walls down very easily. You don't let your guard down very easily. They almost saw that kind of like getting into your inner circle, into your inner sanctum. It's almost kind of like a heroic feat. Something where there might have been kind of a questioning, like they were on the fence about it, sort of like, is it worth the challenge? I don't want to have to kind of like beg for love. I don't want to have to kind of like continue to prove that I'm not like other people that have hurt you in the past. I don't want to be kind of judged based on the shadow of the past. Or there might have even been something like, I don't know what's in your past, why you'd be so like closed off. So this might have been something that triggered a bit of their sort of like, I don't know if I want to proceed really with this. This could account for if they took like a slow approach with you, trying to sort of feel things out, or to see like, is there some kind of catch? Is there something about you that this aspect of like very like self-protected, very guarded, not easily giving your trust out or not easily letting people in? Is that because you're trying to kind of like keep hurt and heartbreak away from you? Or are you hiding that you're the person that hurts and breaks hearts? So there's almost something where there's like a fear of the unknown as far as you were concerned, just based on kind of like how you were presenting. They might have also heard things about you from, people that had maybe not the best intentions, or, kind of he said, she said sort of energy that made them almost kind of feel like, okay, I know what the word around town is about you, but I want to see for myself. I understand and appreciate kind of what people have said, but people are sometimes liars, or people are sometimes, they are misled, or they hear untruths and they kind of run with that. So there's a sense of like this person wanted to kind of like not judge you, but they found themselves kind of judging based on appearances, based on the way in which you carried yourself, based on the ways in which you were very reserved. And there's a part of them, though, that felt kind of initially like, if this proves to be something, that it's kind of like what you're guarding, what you're keeping, what you're kind of holding inside is just like an act of self-preservation or self-respect or self-love, then this is something like, I'm head over heels in love with that. There's also something within them that is kind of like, if you have been so wounded, so hurt, and are so kind of maybe ashamed of choices that you've made, or, people that you've let into your life previously, and there's just like truly like a softness within, not where you kind of like punish other people for other people's mistakes, but just sort of like, I got to preserve what's left of me after everything else the world has taken. Then this is something that kind of like, if you will let me in, if you give me like a peek behind the curtain, and if what I see aligns with that, then I will stop at nothing to prove to you like you're safe within my presence. It feels like this is somebody that when you met them, they were looking for serious connections. They were looking to like date to marry. This is somebody that wasn't looking to waste their time. They might have also, this almost feels like something where they didn't recognize their own reflection as manifested in you. And so that may have been something as well that was kind of like, at first they couldn't see that it's like, I'm presenting that same way myself at face value for people that don't know me, for people that first meet me. There's this aspect of like, what are you hiding? What are you so guarded about? Are you just really an emotionally shut down person? Are you just an emotionally stunted person? Are you a damaged person? Are you damaged goods? Or are you somebody that like you've managed somehow to preserve the best of you inside, no matter what the world has taken from you otherwise, or no matter like what has happened to kind of put you in this sort of self-protective bubble. And whoever kind of gains access to that and cherishes it and treats it right and appreciates it, that's the luckiest person in the world. There's something where they almost kind of like, as much as there was like a skepticism about you, there was also the sense of like, if I can get to the bottom of this mystery, if you'll let me in, if I can use my critical thinking skills to kind of like not judge based on appearance, or, you know, not just kind of run with that idea of like leaping to conclusions about like a very, almost like a very unique energy. You have a very, they saw and felt at first that it was, and it was kind of like you have a very powerful aura, a very powerful energy. Not a magnetic energy, but you project out a very powerful vibration. But with that was almost the sense of like, what's that hiding? If you're trying to kind of project all that energy outward, put that attention outward, away from yourself, as opposed to trying to like pull in attention, feeding off of the attention of other people. Maybe you're a very like private person, you keep to yourself. And there's a sense of almost like the appearance of you should speak otherwise. You should be out trying to get attention from tons of people. You should be out trying to like manipulate and using whatever you bring to the table to your advantage, including this powerful energy, but you don't. Why? What's the catch? What else is there? Like, this is like somebody that thought you were too good to be true at first. But there's almost like, if I could get in, if you will let me in, if I could find a way in, which is where that kind of like detective work comes in. This might have been somebody that thought like, I need to kind of like go about this in my own way. Like, you're not just going to reveal this to me, or it's something that it takes time to warm up and open up to people. And so there might have almost been something where there was kind of like a sense of like, I don't know if I can just kind of like sit and wait for you to kind of just naturally come out of your shell in some sort of way. I got to find out more information. But there's a sense of kind of like, this was also somebody that was in the past, in the energy of then, they were like, prove me wrong, prove this, please, kind of like prove this just maybe negative assumption, or, you know, kind of like a negative opinion that certain other people might have had. Even just like a reputation that you may have had of being very kind of very aloof, very closed off, very cold kind of energy. But then it's like their experiences with you spoke to something different. Up close and personal, you're warm, you're friendly, you're very convivial. So why would that be the impression of kind of like, that person's hard to read? They don't let people in easily. They shut others out. They're very kind of closed off within themselves. But then personal experience said something different about that, where this was almost kind of like, what's the reality and what's the fiction? But there was a part of them that was very much like, if the reality is that you're just a very like loving and hopeful person, but you kind of reach the end of the tether as far as like how far you're willing to extend that, or who you like let into your reality, then if I'm able to earn a place within that reality and close to you, then I'll do everything in my power to make sure that I don't kind of misuse that gift in some sort of way. And again, it's this energy of not being able to recognize their own reflection in how you're presenting. So it feels like this is something where they almost might have sensed you or recognized you as operating on like a higher frequency, an elevated frequency. That may just be kind of like just the vibe you carry, your just your energy in general, your core frequency. But it feels like for a lot of you, this is something that like, this is something you created within yourself through kind of like hard work, shadow work, healing journey, spiritual path, all of that. Like, this person recognized that in some way, that it was very unique compared to like people around you or people around them. It was nothing that they'd ever really kind of encountered. But there also might have been this energy of like not recognizing their own reflection, because it's almost like they were operating on some level with kind of like a desire to reach that, but still within their raw potential. And so it's almost looking at like a future manifestation of like, to stay the course with kind of like working to make better choices for oneself in multiple ways, or, you know, remaining true to oneself despite kind of, experiences in the outside world or in the past that might have suggested that kind of shutting down or becoming embittered is the wise thing, to continue along that kind of like, I'm gonna keep my heart open. I'm gonna keep my heart pure, even when the world kind of pushes me to be otherwise, or advocates that I do otherwise. That this is something where it's almost kind of like aligning with a higher level love. But they couldn't like see that, it feels like, at first. So it brought forth a lot of curiosity within them, like a standoffish kind of energy, like an uncertainty, fear of the unknown. But it almost feels like that unknown was just a manifestation of their own reflection. So let's take a look at the energy of now. How have these thoughts and feelings about you changed? Okay, we've got curiosity, keeper of hope, and receive. Yeah, so there's that energy of curiosity. So this is still somebody that feels like you are hard to read. You are a mystery. You keep revealing these layers about yourself. They keep kind of, it's almost like what they experience with you up close and personal or in real time. You keep kind of shattering the illusions of things they might have heard about you. Things that might have been like in the rumor mill about you that are just not true. They were either just like not true in terms of they were like lies or deceptions or like smear campaign, or just, like that game of telephone where sort of like the truth gets totally distorted. There's things where this is almost kind of like, this has brought up something within this person of kind of like feeling that you've been treated unfairly, you've been talked about unfairly. People in general have like a wrong assumption about you. This may even just be something, if it's the way you carry yourself, people might be like, oh, that person's stuck up, they're closed off, they're unsociable, they're kind of like, they think they're better than everybody else. And it's a sense of like, actually, no, that's a very kind of like warm and friendly person, but they don't just give it away to anyone. Like they've been through the ringer in life, and they're more cautious about who kind of gets that access. Like this you made a believer out of this person in terms of like, yeah, you're operating at a high frequency. I'm hearing there's not a malicious bone in your body. And so this is somebody that like sees you as a very kind of like delicate, you're a very delicate soul. You're a delicate person. They feel very sad that like the world has made you kind of develop this hardened shell, or has activated some kind of degree of spiritual protection, ancestral protection around you for what you've been through. If they're familiar with the idea of like a light worker, they definitely would consider you a light worker. Somebody who's very kind of like cherished, very protected, very chosen. Because you anchor in this frequency of kind of like of the light, as opposed to others that kind of operate in sort of a false paradigm of that. This is something where they feel like they respect very much kind of your guarded energy, because there's a sense of things that they might have found out, information they might have received, or things where they just kind of like took the time to sort of entertain other possibilities, what ifs. They're holding space for that unknown, that it's like whatever you've been through might have been very awful. And awful's a relative term. What is horrible to one person is like nothing to another. But, for your situation, whatever that looks like for you, whatever you've been through in life in general, or maybe experiences in love, there's a lot of respect that they have. They don't want to like push those boundaries. Whatever they've kind of found out, or maybe your ancestors or your spirit team, your spirit guide, your angels have kind of tapped this person on the shoulder like, hey, back off. This isn't something to like poke at, or try to kind of like dig around in. Like if you're patient, the door will open, and you'll kind of discover why this person is so guarded, what they hold within, which is like light. That now this person is, they're very like, they have a lot of respect for you. They respect your privacy. They respect your process of allowing them to earn trust. They feel that there's almost like, thank you for allowing me this opportunity with you. Thank you for allowing me, to still kind of have a place in your life, even though on some level they also may see that you're very psychic or very intuitive, because there's almost a sense of like, like they know that they have been kind of not just taking this interactions between the two of you at face value, but have kind of like, they've looked into you, they've asked around, they're kind of like, they're very curious, they're kind of like pressing on your energy, or have at different periods in time. And yet you kind of were just, maybe you set some healthy boundaries, you kind of said something that caused them to back off a little bit, or you were just very cool with it, sort of like, yeah, I'm used to that. It comes with being a guarded person. Everyone wants to try to test those boundaries and sort of rattle the cage a bit, see what the threshold of tolerance is. And so there's a lot of compassion this person has, like, people should be treating you more kindly. This person feels like sad that you haven't kind of maybe had the easiest life or the best experiences in love. This is somebody that doesn't want to bring distress to you. This is somebody that it feels like now there's these feeling of like, I want to take a softer approach. I was coming at this all wrong. I assumed the worst. And now it's almost like cat's out of the bag, but it's like now this little caged bird, this aspect of you that was like singing from in that cage, singing for connection, calling out for connection, holding out to hope, like singing your own song of like whatever life and love has looked like, but you still have hope for the future. That it's like that is kind of, that's moved to a different place of their understanding, or you've told them certain things, or you've given them access to that, to a peek into that, or to more of an understanding of that, or just how you are beyond that kind of like hard exterior, how you are beyond that kind of trust issue. You might have opened up to them in some sort of way that was kind of like, they see trust is not something you give easily, and so they value it. They're seeing you from a different perspective. They might even feel kind of guilty or ashamed at having like misjudged you in some way. That it's like they were thinking there was all this chaos, but it was just like a delicate butterfly inside. And so there's a sense that like you've changed this person's opinion about certain things. You've changed this person's opinion about you. This is something where they're starting to kind of receive, they're starting to see kind of like, wow, if I was in similar circumstances, I wouldn't have come out as loving, as generous of heart, as open-hearted, as hopeful. Wow, if I had been through certain things, like I don't know where I would be today. Even if you hadn't like given them details, it's almost something that they're able to just kind of read or perceive about you. You're closed off for a reason. You're almost like somebody, they see you as somebody that kind of like pushes the world away, but you want closeness. And so this is somebody that like, I need to take a different approach to this. I can't force my way in. I need to wait until you open up, till you open that door, till you yield. And so this is something that is helping to kind of almost allow them to sort of see an aspect of themselves as well. Like maybe this is what I have needed all along. Maybe there's been parts of me that have been caged up, crying, shut away from the world. That like bits of light that I've self-preserved, I've self-protected. And it's almost like they see a similar light despite the wounding within you. And so there's a sense of almost like kinship that they feel with you, like soul family. You might be somebody that understands a level of kind of like desperation towards self-preservation emotionally. That is an aspect within them. They're starting to really see, it feels like you in some way reflect something within them they were unable to perceive before. So this is somebody, it feels like that, yeah, their opinion of you, any kind of judgment they might have had has softened. And there's a sense of like, there's an urge to kind of bring you a softer experience of romance, or to start to kind of there's a desire to like nurture you in some way. This is somebody that wants to kind of like bring healing to your wounds. Like you've created closure in some way for yourself through previous things, but it's like, I want to be somebody that kind of like, I don't want to make you feel like you wasted your time or it was a bad investment trusting in me. I want to make sure that your experience with me, in whatever way you allow it and however long that might be, that it's something that doesn't leave you worse for wear, but, you know, kind of like doesn't clip your wings, but kind of like encourages you to spread those wings and fly, or kind of let your full self be revealed. Like this person does not judge you based on what you've been through or your scars, or, you know, even things that they don't know about. They might have been curious and apprehensive before, but they've softened into a place of kind of like accepting that you'll share what you want to, and that there may be certain parts of you that are just would always be a mystery to them. They've come into a place of like being comfortable with that, sort of accepting that, because they see you as somebody that is kind of like, you carry like a transformative energy. And so there's a sense of like, if I operate in integrity with you, if I remain in alignment, if I keep things high vibrational, then that transformative energy, it's going to awaken transformation within me as well. Like together we could have a transformative experience of love and partnership. So let's get some message cards from their higher self and see what they want you to know. Okay, and we have, I do think about the future, and when I do, I think about you in it. Yeah, so this is somebody that they don't want to mess things up with you. They don't want to like scare you away. They want to acknowledge the ways in which they might have been kind of like skeptical. Like, what are you trying to hide? Why, you know, why are you so hard to read? Why are you not receptive to me? Also, in terms of those kind of, you know, ideas about things that they may have heard or things that they might have assumed that might have made them sort of like, I don't know if I want to invest fully in this. I don't know what to expect, what this is going to turn out to be like. It's like they've transcended all of that, or you've proven something wrong. Some kind of assumption they held within or a rumor was like proven wrong. And so there's a sense of like, I want to build beyond that. I don't want to address that directly because I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to open old wounds. I don't want to make you feel bad. I don't want to make you close off even more to me. So this is somebody that is just kind of like trying to move beyond that internally within themselves. They want to be more generous with you. They want to give more to this connection, or kind of give in a softer way than they had before. We also have, I've been astral projecting to you. So this is somebody that feels like that wants to honor your need for space, honor your journey, like wherever you're at in your journey, whatever, you know, kind of you've cultivated for yourself, in order to, you know, kind of live your life in conjunction with whatever that sort of woundedness in that's created like this guarded bubble around you. There's a sense that they don't want to encroach on that. They don't want to intrude on that. They don't want to overstep their boundaries in some way. There's like, this is somebody who's done a complete 180 as far as like, they were skeptical. Now they're very like, they almost are very like, they revere you in some sort of way. They see your energy in a different way, that it's not like a wall to keep people out, but it's something that's almost like an exalted energy. It's a privilege one must earn, but that idea doesn't come from a place of ego. So it's almost kind of like they want to just sort of touch upon this very gently. They want to bring gentle energy. They feel this urge to kind of bring healing to you, to bring softness to you, to kiss any wounds within you that may still exist that you can't talk about, or things that have been very slow to heal. They also say, I do want to make things right with you. Give me that opportunity. Yeah, so this is somebody that wants to definitely change their tune as far as how they've been, you know, approaching this situation. This is somebody that, you know, misjudged you, or kind of like leapt to the wrong conclusions. They were very guarded, and there's a sense of like they've relaxed incredibly into this connection. Is kind of like, wow, okay, there's a light inside of you that deserves to be protected, that deserves to be cherished, that deserves to be honored. Let me prove to you carefully, delicately, consistently, slowly, that I am the right person to entrust that with. So let's get some initials. This could be a first, middle, or last name, or it could spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. We've got U, A, N, V, L, B, C, V, F, P, D, G, K, H, G, S, D, and E. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. Please give the video a like or a comment to show your support. Subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more content that I put out. Don't forget to hit the bell button in order to get notifications about videos as I put them out. And if you'd like to book a personal reading with me, I offer those through my Etsy shop, and there's a link for that below in the description box of the video. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well.